The Bardiche. Quite an interesting historical polearm, but for some reason almost nobody seems to make reproductions of them. When I found this one made by Deepeeka in India, I was skeptical because of the price and no information. I decided to risk it and, well, it's cheap and there is certainly room for improvement. Fortunately, I know someone who can help out.
My name is Benoit Laurent, the Steward Mountain Forge. I'm a blacksmith, been one for about 10 years. I worked in England and France, mainly with traditional architectural ironwork, but I've dabbled in some traditional weapon making, knife making, and Damascus steel.
Okay, so what I got here recently is a Bardiche made by Deepeeka, and this one here is pretty cheap, and I'm seeing some issues with it. This is one of Deepeeka's older products, apparently. From what I've heard, they improved their quality recently. So this one, I have a few issues with. Namely, for one, the handle is completely round. So that's not great for feeling edge alignment and all that. Also, the way this is put together.
I suspect it's either mild steel or just 1045 as cut.
And indeed, mild steel it is, which seems like an odd choice. It's very soft steel, even compared to something like 1045.
It might be resistance welded, but I think I've got some lines from countersunk rivet. So that would be either countersunk with a drill or with a bob punch traditionally, and then the rivet is then just ground up afterwards, making a clean connection. So that part's quite nice.
This could potentially be an issue with the way it's set up. Because if you were to strike something at an off angle, this could possibly rip out. So the ear is just screws. If you turn that a little bit, so you've got the round handle, and then this is just sitting on top there.
They put this glue here because they didn't want to bother with putting a wooden wedge and then a steel wedge. This is just to cut time. And then they just pinned it in place with just an old screw on each side. So definitely could see some improvement. They've notched this here, which is what you're supposed to do, give it a bit of force from the downward, but the notch is not accurate, so they filled it with a putty, or again the epoxy, the same they used inside the eye to compensate for the loose fit.
So yeah, you can definitely see there are a number of measures taken to decrease the cost as much as possible. And of course, the low cost is one of the main appeals of the Deepeeka products. Okay, so here's the head that Benoit made. Can you tell us how you shaped it?
I didn't have any steel like a cutout like Deepeeka does. So this is all completely forged out of a heavy truck spring. Everything is spread out, keeping a bit of material for the bottom here to wrap around the handle and to fixate it later. Tried to maintain as much of the original design as possible for testing. Tried to stay true to what we're trying to compare here and just focus on using a superior steel to get better results.
So this steel here is 5160, right?
Yeah, 5160 would be the truck springs. And I've made all the wraparound supports, and the butt will be made out of a drive shaft, which would be 4140. So both steels are going to be more appropriate.
And for the handle, over here we've got a piece of hickory.
Yeah, we've gone with a more rectangular section. We'll have it rounded up a little bit, but it'll help you keep your head aligned exactly where you want it, and helps definitely prevents it from breaking. It'll actually have more strength perpendicular to your force that comes in through the head, rather where it's round. Even if it has the same mass, it'll actually be weaker, more susceptible to breaking just by the way the section is made. And we've gone with a longer length, to 50 inch instead of about a 38.
Yeah, this is just essentially personal preference. I feel that this is a little bit short for a Bardiche. And the wood here, no idea what it is. It's some kind of local Indian wood, and we have no way of figuring that out. Deepeeka doesn't say what it is, so who knows.
Now for the eye of the Bardiche, we're going to do it a little bit differently, just keeping it even rather than having this back support here. I've made it a bit thicker, a bit wider overall, and instead of mounting with these screws, we're going to use traditional forged nails to fixate it in place, and we'll use a wooden and steel wedge, and we'll also form the eye in an hourglass well, this is not bad, but an hourglass shape, so when our wedges expand, it's permanently fixed, where if this looks more just tapered and the screws holding it, well, we're more susceptible to it falling out with just 4 screws and glue holding this, whereas here we'll have a big series of nails and the wedges and just a better overall fit and finish. Final wedges in, from the wood to the steel.
How much of a difference would you say do the metal wedges make compared to just wooden wedge?
The metal wedges I make little barb hooks on them. The wooden wedge it's good, but it always has a bit of a tendency to come out. And it's important just to have a second set of wedges to spread your handle both directions, especially purely a rectangle. Oval you might do diagonally, but here the wooden wedge is spreading. We're bulging this way, and the steel will bulge this way, filling out what we've the bit of extra material we've added on the top of the eyelet here.
There's 2 points of contact here, so if you strike something, if you only have point of contact here, this could be more likely to break, right? Because it's all just going on this side, whereas this way it's distributed between those 2 ends.
And also I've left the wood a larger dimension where you wouldn't usually handle the material, just to have added impact resistance. Even if you go through, if you're hitting something here and you go all the way through, you've got a lot of material to take the brunt of. And I've only reduced it to a appreciable size for the hand where you need it. You could definitely tell this has less carbon in it. And it's got a more uneven grind, especially. they don't taper the spine.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking, it's a cutout.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to taper it down in order to get a proper point. Because otherwise, if you keep the bevel the same, you have too much material. You can't get the angle down.
Right.
So it's just, and I don't think, they're not going for super sharp anyway. That's just how it comes out of the machine.
All right, so here we've got a few knives that Benoit has made. Here's quite a nice hunting knife.
A bit of a random Damascus pattern with a burnt arbutus handle with a little bit of firework on the spine. And its own custom-made leather sheet with a rose embroidered in.
Got this one here.
This was just an experimental pattern with a new steel and with ball bearing races, seeing exactly what kind of tortures it can do. This is just one of the finished products. It takes a good edge, nice walnut handle, brass pins and brass bolster.
As you can see, quite a beautiful mirror finish.
Yeah, sometimes mirror, sometimes it's satin, sometimes it's in between. And this is a tier style folder that I made in France. The Brotherhood of Knife Makers in Tier, they hold at any of the events that they're attending, they have a bit of a program where anyone can come in and make your own knife with one of the journeymen or masters there, and they etch in your name on it as well. So it's really fun. If ever you're in the Tier region of France and they have an event there, you can have one of yours made. And here's just a unique pattern I've designed with kind of the idea, a bit of ergonomics with the handle, and just, you know, I like, what I find tough sometimes with knives is just the puller, the groove, just for your nail to lift up the knife. The idea of removing more material from the back is you can easily pull the blade without having to bust a nail if the spring is too hard or if it gets a lack of oil or whatever.
Yeah, I've got to say, I've never really liked nail nicks. They are just kind of inconvenient.
Well, yeah.
Not everybody has nails long enough even to use it properly. So here, since it dips in, there's plenty of blade to grab, so this is really easy to open. It's definitely a better way of doing it, in my opinion. And also the handle shape is really nice in the hand. Quite like that one. And Purple Heart version even more so. The purple just looks really nice on this.
Purple Heart and the walnuts has its own. In each of these hardwoods, I mean, it's all a flavor, whether it be the Purple Heart or any other rosewood or any of our local hardwoods. I mean, it's the variety you can get, the color you can get with wood, or even in some of the artificial materials. It's you know, the variety you can achieve with something that should be simple as a knife. It's quite incredible.
This folder here I really like the overall shape. It's got a bit of a subtle curvature here and the clip point. Looks quite nice.
Yeah, all these folders are all stainless tool steel, stainless bolsters, stainless pins, and brass hinge pins. And this one has just a little emblem in the center of the handle of Paduke. And I like the contrast with that wood particular. Same with the Purple Heart. They're some of my favorites to have in contrast with the polished stainless.
Yeah, this is definitely my favorite out of these. I mean, file work always looks nice, but that's a particularly beautiful pattern here. This one is also very, very sharp. Always nice to see.
I like to keep it stout enough that you could use it in a kind of survival situation or anytime you're out in the bush.